The rival to SpaceX's Starlink, OneWeb, has filed for bankruptcy. Dr. Brad Tucker and I dive into this, talking science, story of the week.
Across Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts and YouTube, this is Talking Science with Dr. Brad Tucker and Matt Miller.
Alrighty, well, OneWeb, SpaceX's Starlink rival, has filed for bankruptcy protection.
Yeah, OneWeb, we just talked about it at the end of last year when they launched their first batch of satellites, and then last month they launched a second batch, and then over the weekend filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. It really, shows how, not only just how hard it is, but the costs involved and how of a long-term vision you have to have and stick to, because ultimately their financial backers, who were expecting to increase their backing for $2 billion to start rolling out the rest of the network, got cold feet and pulled out, and that's the end of it, which is a really sad sight to see for this company.
It does leave uncertainty for the roughly, I think it's 74 satellites in orbit, and the license from the Federal Communications Commission for another 600 odd of these satellites for high-speed internet around the world, much like what Starlink's doing. What happens to these satellites now? Do they just go defunct, or does it depend on the sale of the company?
Yeah, this is a big question. So there will be a few employees still at OneWeb to maintain operation of the satellite, mostly for safety reasons. What happens now is a bit of a question. They, as you said, they already have infrastructure up there. So who owns that? Well, probably, any creditors who may take it on or buy the company, they would get control of the satellites. Iridium, the satellite phone company, went through a similar phase about 10 years ago, maybe a little 11 years ago. They built a network, went bust, someone bought it for cheap, controlled it, and then revamped the business model. But then, as you said, the bigger question, I think, is what happens to the potential use of those satellites and then the approval to build the rest of the network and actually run it. Now, I don't know if that can easily just be transferred to a new company unless a new company signs on. You can imagine a new person with a new backer essentially just says, yes, we're going to continue this work. That license can probably be mostly transferred, and same with the equipment. But if someone doesn't want to use it, it's more space junk. They do have the option of deorbiting the satellites. That's one of the government, the rules is you have to have a way of bringing your satellite down. So if someone says, hey, no one's going to buy it, then the UN, I believe, can force OneWeb and the FCC to bring those satellites down, which would be a giant waste of resources and money ultimately.
And it really does come down to that as well, that if OneWeb just goes the way of the dodo, that there is all this time, money and resources that have gone into these satellites for arguably a good reason. OneWeb was looking at targeting people above the 60th parallel north latitude for planes, boats, homes, and anyone really in the Arctic Circle. So the best outcome here is that someone like Elon Musk comes along and goes, you know what? I'm going to do that, and I'm going to keep going with it.
Yeah, look, they very well could. Or either they could have a new financer. Again, OneWeb was backed by, I think, a Japanese investment bank, and they were waiting on, $2 billion for the next batch. It didn't happen. And so there's it's a bit unsure of the timeline. Is the financial turmoil from coronavirus really the trigger for it? There were signs that they weren't going to get the investment even before this, so it's unlikely that was the case. But now with kind of everything frozen, what's going to happen next 6 months to a year? If the project doesn't resume, say at least for another year, which is probably likely, right? By the time the situation resolves and the world normalizes, so then you just kind of have a year of wasted time and lifespan of these satellites up there. That adds extra cost. So you kind of want someone to sign on quickly. You can imagine someone like Bezos maybe even doing it. And this is, again, where SpaceX and Musk and Starlink has always really thought long-term, realizing we have to invest a lot of money up front, and we're not going to see returns for better part of a decade. But if we play the long game, you will. And SpaceX is seeing that now in all of their technology, and I imagine they will see that in Starlink as well. So you need someone with that mindset that it takes a while in space to build up enough infrastructure, just as on the ground, right? You know, it takes years to roll out new infrastructure. It just takes time. So you need to play the long game.